Survey of Mesechta Beitzah. While there are a lot of things to learn in Mesechta Beitzah, as Mesechta Beitzah is referred to as Mesechta Yantiv. It's discussed heavily. The laws of Yantiv, the laws of Muksa are discussed. Laws pertaining to Shabbos. There are many halachos that are discussed in Mesechta Beitzah, and there are many to choose from. But the good thing is that Mesechta Beitzah really serves as a springboard to many other Mesechtas in Shas. There's in the 40 daf of Mesechta Beitzah and the 5 prakim that are contained within the Mesechta, there are very few Aggadahs. It's mostly halacha that's discussed. Even the Aggadah is really centered around halacha as well. And many of the sugyas present themselves in other Mesechtas. So tonight we're going to learn one of those sugyas that presents itself in other Mesechtas as well. But we're going to see that here in Mesechta Beitzah is really one of the major nafkaminas to a big machlokes found all over Shas. But we'll get to that in just a minute. The Gemara says the following on Daf Gimel Amud Beis. Echad Beitzah shenolda b'yantiv. Okay, let's say you have an egg that is shenolda b'Shabbos. You have an egg that is laid on Shabbos. Okay, and a egg that's laid on Shabbos is muksa. Echad Beitzah shenolda b'yantiv, or it's laid on yantiv. It's muksa. The Gemara has a whole reason why it is that an egg that's laid on Yantiv or Shabbos is muksa. Not really our discussion right now, but it certainly is muksa. It'd be problematic to move it around, says the Gemara. Lo lichsos ba'esakli v'lo lismoch ba'kari amita. You are not allowed to move it for any means at all. You are not allowed to move this egg. It needs to stay where it is. Aval kofa le'esakli. You are, though, allowed to put a vessel on top of it, b'shvil shelo tishaver, in order so that it doesn't break. Says the Gemara, v'sveika asura. Now, let's say it's a suffix, whether or not the egg was laid on Yantiv or Shabbos or during the week. You don't know when the egg was laid, right? So let's say, for example, you check the coop before Shabbos, and you don't see any eggs there. And then on Shabbos, you come and you see that the egg is there. You do see an egg sitting in the coop. But you don't know. It could be that the egg was laid after you had checked right before Shabbos. It could be that, you checked at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You check again at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Shabbos. Somewhere within that 24-hour period, the egg was laid, and you just don't know. It's very possible it was laid on Shabbos, says the Gemara. It is usser. The Gemara goes on to explain why is it that it is usser. Because
public, right?
What?
Why would Shabbos? I mean, Shabbos you wouldn't be able to use it anyway, even if it wasn't laid on Shabbos, right?
Even if it wasn't laid on Shabbos, why can't you use it?
What are you going to do with it on Shabbos?
What are you going to do with it? I don't know, but it's not muksa.
You can't eat it.
Well, first of all, raw egg you can't eat. You ever seen Rocky?
Yeah. Besides that.
Okay. That's one, but two, it could be used for other things. The Gemara just gave an example before. You can't to use it for as a bedpost. You ever seen those science tricks, right? Where if you balance, you can balance something on top of an egg and it won't break if you put it on the top, right? There are uses for an egg. I could hear that. It's a way of getting your kids out of bed for shul. You take an egg, you chuck it at them, right? So,
does it matter the time of the day in the case?
So that's a very good question. The
case would be different if you check at 7 compared to if you check at 5 a.m.
Right. So the Mishnah, there is a Mishnah that discusses later on Daf Yud. There is a Mishnah that discusses something similar, which is basically that if you know if there's a way to figure out, basically by process of elimination, that it definitely happened on either Shabbos or before Shabbos, so then you can use that kind of a process of elimination. Basically, if there's a way to figure it out, then certainly that's fine. However, if you're completely unsure, still we treat it as aser, v'im nis'arva be'elef, and if it was mixed up with a bunch of other eggs, with 1,000 other eggs, kulan asuros. Then in that scenario, not just is that egg prohibited, but all the eggs are prohibited. This is what the Gemara says. Now, the question at hand that we're going to have to discuss is, hold on one second. If it's only one egg and I'm not sure of its status, okay, fine. I could understand why we're going to be machmir in such a scenario. Either, if it's the Gemara discusses, well, if we're talking about it being potentially an Isser D'Oraisa, according to one of the Amoraim in this scenario, it would be an Isser D'Oraisa to have this, to use this egg. So, okay, fine. So then I understand it's a Safek D'Oraisa, and you would be machmir. But even if it's D'Rabbanan, some D'Rabbanans are more machmir, and even in a case of a Safek like this, we would be more machmir. Fine. So there's a way to understand why it is that when it comes to a suffix, I'm going to be more machmir. However, if it was mixed with 1,000 other eggs, so then kulan asurus, why are they all aser? So the Gemara is going to say, because this is called a davar sheyesh lo matirin. Basically, there is a concept in Yeridea, and discussed in Siman Kuf Beis of Yeridea, that if we have a concept of bittul barov and bittul b'shishim, that basically tam that does not exist is going to be batal. It's going to be null and void. Flavor that exists, and we assume that the shear for most things is about 1/60. That if you have 1 part milk and 60 parts meat, then the flavor is not really going to exist, and that is batal. And the same would apply if you have, let's say, yavish b'yavish. You have 2 oranges that are that have been separated for Trumas and Maasros, and one that is Tevel, and they're all mixed together. So then one of them is going. Then all 3 are going to be considered kosher because it's batal barov. However, if it's a davar sheyesh lo matirin, basically, if you could wait a little bit, and it will end up becoming mutter on its own, so then we will not apply the whole concept of bittul. So, for example, let's say you have something like let's say a scenario where we're talking about right now, right? Where let's say on Shabbos you have an orange that you have a vat of oranges sitting under a tree, and you have an orange that falls off of the tree and goes into the barrel. Okay. So being that all the oranges are mixed together, there's 200 oranges in the mix, 300 oranges in the mix, but one of them is muktzah. One of them you're not allowed to eat from because it was on the tree going into Shabbos. So being that in just a few hours from now, Shabbos is going to be over and there's no longer going to be an Isra of Muktzah, so that's where the Gemara says right over here, you have to wait it out. It's a discussion in the Rishonim why it is you have to wait it out. A Rashi basically says, like, come on, just why would you use a kula when you don't have to, right? Basically Rashi is assuming that there's a kula in making something mutter by using, the concept of bittul. But then, according to the Ran, it's because really, since it never really took on a shame of Isser, being that it's going to be mutter later, okay, fine. Regardless of how you define it, but that's the concept of davar sheyesh lo matirin. If it's going to be mutter soon, then we will not apply the concept of batal berov in this concept, or bittul b'shishim in this concept, or bittul b'meya if we're talking about trumas and maasros. Rather, afilu be'elef, even if it's 1 in 1,000, we're not going to be mekel. The question we're going to have to deal with, though, is what about this scenario? Now, there are 2 ways of reading this Gemara. When you read this Gemara, you could read it either as this being 2 separate cases, that, again, we're talking about a case where the egg is laid on either Shabbos or it was laid on Shabbos, so then it is problematic. However, if it's laid during the week, so then it's not muktzah. But what if we're not sure? So we said it's aser. And then it says, V'im nis'arva be'elef. And then it gets mixed up with 1,000 other eggs just like it. However, those eggs were laid during the week. They're completely permissible. Are we talking about the one that is in a state of suffix that gets mixed up? Or are we talking about a scenario where a completely new scenario, where one that definitely was laid on Shabbos gets mixed up? Okay? So you understand there are two ways to read this Gemara. Either we say Visveka Asura, that if it's in a state of doubt, we're not sure whether or not it was laid on Shabbos or during the week, it's Asur. And then a second case of, or if one that we know for sure was laid during the week, then V'im Nis'arva Be'elef, that one got mixed up with 1,000 others. In both of those scenarios, it would be a problem. Or are we saying, no, even in a scenario where the one that's in a state of doubt, the egg that we're not sure whether or not it was laid on Shabbos or during the week, that one got mixed in with 1,000 others. So then in that scenario, still we have to be machmir. How do we read this Gemara? So this is a machlokas between the Rashba and Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam, right over here. I'm learning a Rabbeinu Tam with Rabbeinu Tam. Is there anything better in the world? I say no.
We kind of cool if today was Rabbeinu Tam's Yotzak too. But
wait, it was?
I'm just saying that.
If it was, yeah. Take a look at what Rabbeinu Tam says over here. The way Rabbeinu Tam understands this Gemara, where'd he go?
By the way, how do you know it's a Rabbeinu Tam?
Right over here. Nuchal afarish kedeparish Rabbeinu Tam.
Okay.
As Rabbeinu Tam writes the following, he understands this Gemara that nis'arva be'elef ha'isser atzmo kai. Rabbeinu Tam understands this Gemara that it's two separate cases. Number one, it's a case of that you have a case where the egg is in a state of doubt. Says the Gemara, we're machmir. Then you have a second case where an egg that's vadai prohibited got mixed in with 1,000 others. Rabbeinu Tam leaves it as two separate cases. The Rashba says no. The way you read this Gemara is one case. You have an egg that's in a state of doubt that then gets mixed in with 1,000 others. The Gemara says we're machmir, and that it'd be aser. So the question is, what is this machlokas between Rabbeinu Tam and the Rashba all about? Again, the Rabbeinu Tam says that if you have one egg, this is what it seems we're going to infer from Rabbeinu Tam. If you have one egg that's in a state of doubt whether or not it was laid on Shabbos or during the week that gets mixed in with 1,000 others, Rabbeinu Tam would say that it's mutter. He has to treat it as two separate cases. However, according to the Rashba says no, that you have one egg that's in a state of doubt that gets mixed in with 1,000 others, still we're machmir, says the Rashba. What's this machlokas all about? So in order to understand this machlokas, we have to see a Mishnah. Mishnah in Meseches Ksubis.
I was distracted by my Rabbeinu Tam. So the Rabbeinu Tam himself said it's an XOR, and that if either one is true, then it's aser. But if both issues occur, he actually explicitly said that, or he just says the fact that he said it's two cases.
No, he explicitly says it. He says it in a few different places.
Okay, so it's not like the fact that he says it's two cases. We understand it to mean that if both were true, then it's mutter.
Meaning, yes, he says that explicitly.
Explicitly says mutter. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. That's what pushes him to explain the Gemara that way. Because he thinks that for sure, if it was a case, why is he so convinced of that? Because according to Rabbeinu Tam, that's called the sfek sfeika.
Yeah.
Right? You have one suffix. We're not sure whether or not it was laid before Shabbos or on Shabbos. And even if it was laid on Shabbos, this might not be the egg because there's 1,000 others.
Mm-hmm.
So Rabbeinu Tam says it's a Sfek Sveika. Sfek Sveika is mutter, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss now. But according to the Rashba, isn't this a Sfek Sveika? Why is it then that, according to the Rashba, we're going to be machmer in such a scenario?
Because at some point it becomes mutter. So you don't need to, you can wait.
But it's a Sfek Sveika. So then you should ask that question on the Rabbeinu Tam. So what's the Nakudas of Machlokas here? Why is the Rashba being swayed by the fact that it's a davar sheish lo matirin versus the Rabbeinu Tam, who is not being swayed by the fact that it's davar sheish lo matirin because it's a Sfek Sveika? That's really what the crux of the question is. Why?
Mm-hmm.
So the Mishnah has the following halacha: Besula nises liyomer ravi, that a virgin has to get married on Wednesdays. V'almana liyom hachamishi. However, someone who was previously married can get married on Thursday. Why? So the Gemara explains, why is it that a basula needs to get married on Wednesday? Because shepamim b'Shabbos, pamayim b'Shabbos, because twice a week. But they did in Yoshvin ba'ayaros, because twice a week the Beis Din sits in the city, b'yom hasheni, b'yom hachamishi, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. She'im yesh lo tanas basulim, because if, let's say, the chassan does not see basulim on their wedding night, so then he can go to Beis Din, hayamashkim the Beis Din, he can go to Beis Din the next day. Basically, we set up this scenario because if he gets surprised the wedding night that this is not the woman he intended to marry, he thought that he was marrying someone who had never lived with someone before, but then it turned out that that wasn't true. So then that could invalidate the entire marriage, because it could be that she was promiscuous. And that's the way that Rashi explains it, because there is a halacha, as is stated explicitly in the Gemara in Sota on Daf Chav Ches, that if a woman steps outside of her marriage between Kiddushin and Nisuin, so then she is prohibited to her husband. That's it. The Nisuin is off. There's two steps in the marriage. First, there's the Erusin, which is the Kiddushin. You give a ring, you say Hariyat Mekudeshesli. The Mishnah in Kiddushin says there's three ways to do that, either Bekesef Shtarubia. Fine, you do the first part of marriage. Then the custom was that you waited 12 whole months until you did the second part, which is Nisuin, where you actually end up living together. Which you go through, either you have the canopy with the chuppah, and you have the Sheva Brachos, and you have the Yichud ceremony. You have the whole thing. Those were two separate things. So during that 12-month period, when they got engaged, when he did Kiddushin, so he thought that he was married. There was no reason to believe otherwise, that she was a basula. Now, when they actually live together, he finds out that she's not a basula. So the assumption now is that she was mizana, that she broke her marriage and lived with another person between Kiddushin and Nisuin. So this poses a tremendous issue, and that's why Rashi explains that the rabbis instituted this gezerah, this takana, that the wedding needs to take place on Wednesday in order so that you can immediately go to Beis Din on Thursday. Tosfos, however, points out that this is a very problematic way to explain this Mishnah. Why? Tosfos explains the following. He says, V'im tomar, hatinach eshes kohen o pechusam abas shalosh deleka elachad sveka. How that there are two scenarios where we could have reasonable doubt to assume that she reason to believe that she actually did live with someone else during that 12-month period. Either it's because the Kiddushin took place before she was even 3 years old, which means that if she lived with someone else before Kiddushin, so then her basulim would have grown back before the Nisuin. So in that scenario, we could assume right away that it's only one potential that, it's a chad sveka, it's one suffix, and therefore we have to be machmer. If it's a case of an Ashes Kohen, so then also in that scenario, it's only one suffix, because what's the svek sveka? What's Tosfos trying to get at over here? Tosfos is trying to get at the fact that, let's go back to this regular scenario where you have a regular girl who gets married to a regular guy. So, and then the night of the wedding, he finds that she does not have any besulim. She's not a virgin. So there are a number of different reasons why she doesn't have, potential reasons why she doesn't have her besulim. Number one, it's very possible that she was not a virgin when he did the kiddushin. Totally possible. And therefore that would not break the marriage. Or it's possible she was raped even after kiddushin and just didn't tell anyone. Those two possibilities could exist. And if that's the case, in neither scenario would she be usher to her husband. She would not be usher to her husband in those scenarios. So if that's the case, so this is a svek sveka. If it's a svek sveka, why is it that they need to get married on Wednesday?
But wait. When you say svek sveka, I mean, there's just two cases. I thought a svek sveka means that there's second doubt on top of a doubt, as opposed to two
That's
different.
right. No, this is a doubt on top of a doubt. Number one, we don't even know if she, you're exactly right that it's a doubt on top of a doubt. Number one, we don't even know if she had her besulim before they got married, before they did kiddushin.
So that's one doubt.
Even if she did, so then it's possible she was raped.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I agree then. Okay.
That's a svek sveka.
I thought there were two separate cases, but they were actually one on top of the other.
Yeah. And therefore, why are they forced to get married on Wednesday then? So comes Rabbeinu Tam to say, well, the reason is exactly what Rabbeinu Tam says over here, that Rabbeinu Tam says, the lo plug rabbanon, that this is a low plug from the rabbis. Basically, that because of the fact that for an Ashes Kohen who was raped for a Kohen, that is a problem. It would still pose an issue, and therefore it leaves it as one doubt whether or not she was Mazana before they did Kiddushin or after they did Kiddushin, and one suffix that's a suffix deoraisa, and therefore we have to be machmer, and they'd be usher to one another. So because of scenarios, the few scenarios that it will pose a potential issue, so therefore we're going to just say all girls who are basulim need to get married, who are basulos need to get married on Wednesday, because of those few cases, in order so that there's uniformity. That's what Rabbeinu Tam says. Rashi doesn't take that approach though. Rashi says Rashi's talking about a regular scenario, a regular case. See exactly what he quotes from Rashi. He says that he quotes from Rashi that Rashi was talking about a completely regular case. He says, "Leperish Rashi ha'afagav de'eno naman b'kol makom yashkim lebezdin." That in any case you have to go. You have to go to Bezdin. Says Rashi. So why? Isn't it a svek sveka? So the Beis Yaakov, who's is written by the Nesivos, which is the Nesivos Rabbeinu Yaakov Melissa, Goyin Melissa, was a tremendous posek. He had a very difficult personal life, but was a tremendous posek and a prolific author in Halachic and Talmudic works. He has a sefer on Ksubis called the Beis Yaakov. In the Beis Yaakov, he explains that, well, it depends on just how far you take this concept of svek sveka, being mutter. Let's say one is able to resolve the doubt, potentially. That if you did you investigated into the situation at hand, and you're able to resolve the doubt, will we still say svek sveka is mutter in such a scenario? So this is a machlokes between the Shach and the Ramah. The Shach paskins that a svek sveka diyachol levrure, that a svek sveka you're able to investigate and resolve the doubt. Regardless, we're going to say mutter. Ein sarach levrure. You don't have to look into the matter. However, according to the Ramah, that even though it's a sfek sveika, regardless of the fact that it's a sfek sveika, being that it's something you could resolve, then we're not going to say mutter. And says the Beis Yaakov, that's exactly what Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam are arguing about. According to Rashi, a sfek sveika is not a blanket heter, but being that it's yachol avurei, you could do investigative work to find out what happened to the girl. So then, being that it's yachol avurei, since you can figure out potentially what happened, therefore, we're not going to say that the heter of sfek sveika applies. And that's why, according to Rashi, there is going to be a requirement for the two of them to get married on Wednesday, in order so that they can go to Beis Din, in order so that they could resolve the doubt. Because we're not going to apply the heter of sfek sveika in such an area, unlike Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam will say, no, who cares that it's yachol livrurei? At the end of the day, it's a sfek sveika, it's a sfek sveika, it's a sfek sveika. And therefore, it's completely mutter. Who cares whether or not you're able to resolve it?
So a sveika doesn't automatically mean something that is unresolvable.
Correct. Yeah. According to everyone. Yes, that does not mean that it's automatically unresolvable. Yeah.
Okay, because I thought a doubt meant that you cannot solve the doubt. Like you have no way to definitively, like for example, the egg. You have no idea if it was hatched.
Right. That's a scenario where. Yeah, exactly. That's a scenario where you don't have the ability to. But that's exactly what the machlok. No, what you're pointing out is exactly what the machlokas tin Rashi Rabbeinu Tam is. Is a sfek sveika by definition something that is unresolvable?
Yes.
According to Rashi, yes. According to Rabbeinu Tam, no. According to Rabbeinu Tam, by definition, it's not unsolvable. Even if it's solvable, we'll still apply the heter of sfek sveika.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to dig though a step even deeper. Comes along the Chazon Yecheskel. The Chazon Yecheskel was written by Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky. He was a chief rabbi of England in the early 20th century. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was a close student of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was unbelievable. He has a sefer on the Tosefta called the Chazon Yecheskel, and he really opened up the Tosefta for the world. Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was awesome. So,
have you heard the story? I think that's about him. They put him in court in England, and they asked him as a witness. They said, is it true, Rabbi, that you're the greatest halachic authority in Europe? And he said yes. And the judge said, I thought you rabbis are supposed to be modest. He said, what can I do? I'm under oath.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's about him. That's awesome.
Okay, I love that story.
It's a great story. Yeah, Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky was unbelievable. So, I tell you quickly, the story of his shidduch is awesome. So as you can imagine, I'm saying the top guys in Europe, especially those that had midos. I mean, those were like the guys that were sought after for shidduchim, right? So he was getting set up with people, from a number of different towns, whatever. So he was going out with different girls, but nothing was clicking. Nothing really, he wasn't really shy for him, for whatever reason. He got set up with someone. It was a little bit of a train ride away, and he treks out to go meet the girl. And fine, he gets there. He gets to the town, and he's on his way to the house, and he sees from a distance that they have a beautiful porch, and on the porch is set up this lavish buffet with clearly because they're welcoming him, they're trying to impress him. He sees the families sitting out on the porch, everyone's dressed in their finest, right? It's like a very chashuv thing they're turning it into, and now he's thinking in his head like, oh my gosh, like another one of these things. All right, whatever, okay. So he's getting closer and he sees what it looks like is either the girl's like little brother or like nephew or something is like in the yard like playing ball, and he kicks the ball and the ball knocks over the entire buffet. It spills all the drinks everywhere. The whole place is a mess. Everyone's clothes get ruined, and you just like you feel like the kid's face like it just goes white. Like he knows he just committed the cardinal sin, and like he's done. Like he is out on the street. No one loves him anymore. Finished. And Rabbi Chaskel sees a young girl go over to this little boy and like kneel down and tell him like, no, like it's okay, like don't worry, like it's fine, like I'm sure that he likes playing ball, the bacher that's coming over, like don't worry about it, it's all good. Rabbi Chaskel saw that. He said, I don't need to know anything else about the girl. She's the girl I'm going to marry. Kachava, two of them got married. It's unbelievable. So in the Chazon Yecheskel, Rabbi Chaskel Abramsky says that we could take this machlokas Rashi, Tosfos, and say that it goes a step deeper. That really Rabbeinu Tam is lishitaso. His opinions line up. How do his opinions line up? Because says Rabbeinu Tam, says the Chazon Yecheskel, that according to Rabbeinu Tam, Svek Sveka is more than just simply a heter. What's Svek Sveka? Svek Sveka means that there was never an Isser in the first place, meaning the Isser completely doesn't exist. As soon as you go into the realm of there being a double doubt, so the Isser is so far-fetched that it doesn't even register according to halacha. Which is why, according to Rabbeinu Tam, in the case of Svek Sveka Diyachol Levrure, that you're able to solve it, there's nothing to solve. Because as soon as it enters into the world of Svek Sveka, so then it loses its status of ever being usher in the first place. Says the Chazon Yecheskel, that's exactly why Rabbeinu Tam, in Beitzah and our Sugya, says that has to read the Gemara the way he does. That in a scenario where the egg that's a suffix gets mixed with the others, that can't be the way you read the Gemara, because there's no way that'd be usher there. That's a Svek Sveka. A Svek Sveka, by definition, never entered into the realm of a Shaila. It's like the Shaila falls away. The Isser completely falls away. And so what if it's going to be a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin? So what if it's going to be Mutter later? It never was Usser. There's nothing to make Mutter. Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin doesn't apply to Svek Sveka, according to Rabbeinu Tam. But according to the Rashba, that's not true. How does the Rashba define Svek Sveka? So if you look at the Rashba inside in two places, number one in his Chidushim over here in Beitzah, and also in his Chuvas in Chelik Aleph Simin Taf Aleph, that the Rashba explains that Svek Sveka is really based on a rove. It's based on a majority, kind of like the way you were explaining before, Gavin, where you have one suffix, where basically if you have a suffix hashakol, an equal suffix, an equal doubt, basically it's a 50-50 chance. 50-50 chance whether or not the egg was laid on Shabbos or it was laid on during the weekday, right? 50-50 chance. But let's take the approach that it was laid on Shabbos. So even in that realm, you could break it down again. Well, we don't know which egg it is because it's now part of a huge vat. In such a scenario, it now becomes a case of, you have it's not really 25% and 25%. It's more like, 66% chance that it's mutter and a 33% chance that it's usher, something like that, right? With all else equal. But what ends up becoming is that there's a rove, there's a majority, the likelihood is that it's mutter. That's the way Svek Svekas work. The likelihood is that the girl is mutter, is muteres, lebala. The likelihood is that there's a reason, it's reasonable why she doesn't have her basula. The likelihood is that it's something reasonable. And therefore, we're going to be mekel. However, if it's a scenario where I can actually unravel the truth, so then even in cases of rove, we don't follow a rove if there's a way that you could, there's a way to figure it out. And the same is true with regard to a davar sheish l'matirin. Davar sheish l'matirin in faced by a rove, davar sheish l'matirin is still applies. That's exactly the way davar sheish l'matirin works. Is that even though there's a rove laheter, but davar sheish l'matirin wins because spek sveka doesn't work. That the isser never exists. No, the isser exists, but this is a heter. So when it comes to a davar sheish l'matirin, so then it's not going to apply. But really, what Rabbeinu Tam and the Rashba and Rashi on the other side, there's also Rashi and Bava Kama and Daf Yud Aleph that seem to indicate this. But what the Rishonim over here are arguing about, Rabbeinu Tam on one side versus really the Rashba and Rashi on the other, is how do you define spek sveka? Does spek sveka mean that there was never an isser in the first place? Or does spek sveka mean no, that there is an isser, but rather that there's a heter as well? All right. I want to close with as I mentioned before, in Meseches Beitzah, there are not many Aggadahs, and even the Aggadahs are really learned in the realm of halacha. Take a look at this amazing Aggadah that comes up in the Mesechta. The Gemara says the following in Beitzah on Daf Tes Zayin Amud Aleph. Tanya, Amru Alav Al Shammai Hazaken. They tell the following about Shammai Hazaken. Kol Yamav Haya Ochel Lekavod Shabbos. That his entire life, everything he would eat was Lekavod Shabbos. How? Because Matzah Behema Naya. Let's say he found a beautiful animal. What would he say? Amar Zu LeShabbos. He'd say that this is for Shabbos. Matzah acheres na'ehe menu. Then on Tuesday, let's say the first animal was on a Monday. Then on Tuesday, he found another animal that was even nicer. Maniaches hashniya ve'ocheles harishona. He would leave the nicer one and then eat the first one. So essentially, what was happening? Every single thing he would eat was really lekavod Shabbos. Says the Gemara, aval Hillel hazaken. However, Hillel mida acheres haisalo. Hillel took it a step further. Not only did he everything he ate was lekavod Shabbos, but everything he did was lekavod Shamayim, was l'shem Shamayim, was for the sake of heaven. Shneimar Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. So, what did Hillel do? Like, what's the segue here, right? Shammai Hazaken. Okay, there's a beautiful trait that Shammai Hazaken had, right? That everything he would eat was lekavod Shabbos. Who's to say that that's where, that now Hillel comes in and Hillel says, well, hold on 1 second. And now I have an even better midah. Everything I do is l'shem shamayim. How does one get from point A to point B? How does one get from having everything you eat be lekavod Shabbos to then turning that into everything you do being l'shem shamayim? So when we look at the mitzvah of Zachor es Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, that there's a mitzvah to remember Shabbos, and it's a fascinating thing. We have this concept of Zachor appearing in a few different places in the Torah, that we have to remember Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim. We have to remember what happened to us in Mitzrayim. We have a mitzvah of Zechiras Amalek, remembering what Amalek did to us. We have a mitzvah of Zecher Maisa Miriam, remembering what Miriam did. We have a number of different mitzvahs that are Zachor, to remember, but they are historical memories, that we remember events that took place, which is usually the way that memory works. You remember something that happened. What are we remembering with regard to Shabbos? Why is the Torah using the language of a Zachor with regard to Shabbos? So it could be that even with regard to those other remembrances, like Amalek and Miriam and Mitzrayim and those other remembrances, it's very possible that the Zachor in that context is not even a historical memory there, but rather it's an engagement where you are not just simply remembering something that happened, but you're engaging with what happened, that you're having what happened take an effect on your life. Shabbos is no different, that we are commanded every single day to engage with Shabbos, to have Shabbos have an effect on our lives. So Shammai HaZaken interpreted that as saying, okay, fine. So every single thing that I'm going to eat is really going to be l'kavod Shabbos because I'm going to spend my time focusing on making Shabbos great. I'm always engaged with Shabbos. Hillel says, hold on, you can take it even a step further. Because what Shabbos is supposed to do, as the Torah says, the whole purpose of Shabbos is that it's supposed to be ladas ki ani Hashem mikachchem, to be able to contemplate God and your relationship with God. That's the whole purpose of Shabbos. So, and if that's the whole purpose of Shabbos, engage with that all the time. When you start having that perspective in life, which is literally walking through life with God right next to you, so then it turns into a life of Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, that Kol Ma'asav L'Shem Shemayim, because you're properly engaged with Shabbos. It's not just simply Zachar Es Yom HaShabbos L'Kacho, that, remember that Shabbos is coming up, and therefore everything you're going to do is going to be preparing for Shabbos. No, engage with Shabbos right now, says Hillel HaZaken. That on a Monday, you should engage with it the way that you engage with Shabbos. That going through life with the sampling of what happens on Shabbos, where you engage with God, where you take time to contemplate your relationship with God, what's truly important in life. Do that every single day of the year. Use Shabbos as a model in order so that you can apply it to every single day of your existence. And that is the way Hillel took the concept of Zachar Yom HaShabbos L'Kacho to the next level. All right, we will stop here. Shkoyach. And next week, Beitzah, next week is Tainus. Mesechta Tainus and Mitzvah, which is very appropriate. Oh, there is no next week because it is a Tainus. So then we will study Mesechta Tainus the following week in preparation for the 3 weeks in Tisha B'Av. All right, we'll stop here. Shkoyach.